You're listening to The Bug.
May cause nausea, vomiting and headaches. Hello Britain, this is The Bug, the show that holds up a mirror to the world and smashes itself on the head with it in despair. I'm Andy, joining me, as always, Alice, and...
I deny everything.
Just a good state of existence. Some good news, at last. There are no medicine shortages, according to the government. None at all. There have been various allegations about that. It turns out they are all fake news, trademark. There are none. There are no shortages of medicine. Don't take it from me. I'm not a medical supply expert. Take it from our beloved government. It's fine. In fact, I'm going to read between the lines here and actually say there's probably... There's too much medicine, if anything. Just medicine. You can't move for medicine. In fact, just this morning, I tried to pour some cornflakes into a bowl for breakfast and out-tumbled a 12-month course of immunosuppressants, corticosteroids, and anti-retrofungal neurodilatory estrogen spermatotropic fruit pastels.
The people claiming there are medical shortages are probably high on lots of medicine that they've been given. I, for one, believe that there are no medical shortages, Andy. Just last week, I went in with a broken arm and they suggested it might just be extreme period pain and prescribed me a drink of water and an astrology chart.
We can't be too far away from them just prescribing stiff upper lip like they did at the Blitz.
My uncle had a leg removed due to diabetes. They halved his insulin because they said there was less of him to be diabetic.
So, anyway, people, don't believe what you read or hear about there not being enough medical drugs to go around. It's not true. It's hospital hogwash, it's pharmaceutical flim-flam, it's medical mendacity, it's Hippocratic humbug, it's nonsensical narcotic nincompoop. I think I've made the point. Do not believe the news telling you that we've run out of medicine, nor should you believe the empty shelves at the chemists. They're also lying. Do not believe your doctor saying, sorry, we're fresh out of that, you're going to have to eat a carrot and pretend. And do not believe your own cobweb-ridden medicine cabinet at home. It might look empty, but it's not, for it contains the only medicine any of us truly need. Stirring music, please, producer Chris. Freedom. The medicine of British freedom. And the analgesic knowledge that however ill you may be, Bloom are keeping an eye on things for you.
I'm investing heavily in the placebo effect right now. You're listening to The Bug.
Obviously, I don't entirely mean that, because what is the first rule of the third millennium? If someone in power tells you something is fake news, what is it? Correct. A 110% cast iron, tungsten-coated, granite-scented, cosmically immutable, scientifically unarguable fact. But surely, Alice, the more important question for all these medicine freaks whinging on about feeling a bit poorly or having a fatal but curable illness and slowly dying unnecessarily is this. Do we actually need medicine? If you today got diagnosed with a potentially fatal illness, would you not look around at the nation that we've become and think, hey doc, put your life-saving treatment down, I'm going to take this free one-way bus out of here. Now hold that pillow over my face until the twitching stops.
I just don't think we should think of it in such a negative way. Don't think of it as a medicine diet, Andy. Think of it as a series of healthy lifestyle swaps. Swap out anti-inflammatories for antacids. Swap out the iron lung for the aluminium lung. Swap out MRI machines for Mary machines, which is just a lady called Mary telling you you're fine.
Obviously, critical shortages are as much part of our daily lives, our society and our culture today as things like football, music and complaining about the weather used to be in the old days. And, well, food shortages, we just learn to live with them, don't we? And there's a lot of positives as well with all these food shortages. I mean, we were eating too much anyway. As a nation, the government's just helping us live healthier lifestyles. It's so hard to diet on your own, isn't it? You need the support of a friend or a loved one or a government or collapsing social infrastructure. Positive too, meat, very bad for the environment. So we're actually rebuilding the polar ice caps every time we eat a scrap of lettuce. Positive three, the human race had already cooked all the recipes it needed. There was nothing more to be done with food. We've done that. We can tick it off. We've done it. I was bored of food anyway. I've been eating it all my life. If you've been doing the same thing 3 times a day, 4, sometimes 7, or even 8 times a day, you're bound to get bored of it. And also, final positive, no more meal times. Frees up all that extra time for appreciating all the selfless hard work that Albion do to keep us all safe here in Britain.
Well, as you say, Andy, people are drawn to novelty, and everyone's had breakfast once. Why you got to keep having it again and again?
Boring, repetitive. There's enough of that in life as it is. You are listening to The Bug. Well, another story that has come to the fore recently is that all European imports have been banned for public health reasons. Which is great news. I mean, at least we can get ill eating good, home-produced, locally sourced, British, industrially unsafe food. That's something we can all cling to. Public health reasons, those are curious words. Alice, I don't know, is that in case the public gets too healthy eating all that Mediterranean muck? Let's have British food for British tummies. Spelt, nettles, and rabbit. That's all we need. That's all we need in the glory days. Everyone round to Nigel's for dinner. Yum, yum.
Who needs Italian olives when you can eat pickled rubber bands in a soup of regret? Who needs a nice cheese when you can eat a lukewarm, unspecified rat meat pie with 0 spices?
Sand, nettles, and bits of dead fox. That's all we needed to eat in the glory days. Let's make Britain great again. That's all from The Bug today. Good night, sleep tight, and make sure the bed bugs do bite. The Bug. Objective voice of objection for a most objectionable world. Hello, Bugsters. Welcome to The Bug, the comedy show that holds up the Medusa of satire to the already immovably concrete face of modern Britain. I'm Andy, I bench 480, and I can crack a tree in half just by looking at it. Can I? Well, what is reality anymore, anyway? Alice, what do you bench?
Bench body weights, well, not my body weight,
Okay.
body weight of a baby.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to give that kind of detail. Just
It's very
body weight.
impressive. People look
Yeah.
at me and go, where did you get that baby?
You are listening to The Bug.
In this week's Truth News, according to an official poll, 98% of Londoners are very happy with CTOS. And I am not sure that I agree with this, Andy. I don't think 98% of Londoners have ever in the history of London ever agreed on anything. You could not get 98% of Londoners to agree that oxygen was better than breathing a fog of raw liquid feces. And they expect us to believe that everyone agrees CTOS is better than not choking on shit mist.
I mean, maybe they just meant 98% of one specific Londoner who bought shares in Bloom before its tentacles grew into every crevice of the country. I mean, this is not just any old poll. We should say that. This is not any poll. This is an official poll. Right from the very heart of government. It's not a knock-off fake poll of an elderly couple and their mangy old dog sitting on a bench waiting to die. This is an official poll. So let's just put those words, official poll, through an online translator in case you didn't study languages. Let's find out what it actually means. Made up lie. There we go. Got to clear that up. I think it's fair to say, entirely trust these official polls they feed us, Alice. I mean, they could publish an official poll saying that over 99.9% of children like ice cream, and I would instantly assume that all children now hate all ice cream and would prefer to eat a bucket of gravel mixed with dead badger. They could publish an official poll saying that 10 out of 10 cats prefer cat food to being whacked with a tennis racket, and I would assume that all cats have gone vegan and were queuing up outside Wimbledon meowing, choose me, choose me.
I trust these polls as much as I trust someone recommending a movie that they watched during a breakup. Your judgment is impaired, Sally. I'll make my own decisions.
I trust those polls as much as I would trust Mary Kelly if she came up to me and said, "Congratulations, Andy, you've just won a free holiday to the south of France in the back of this windowless van."
I think official polls are like the unsolicited dick pics that the government provides us. I didn't ask for it, I don't believe it, it's on an angle, you've artificially inflated it ahead of time, and anyone that falls for one deserves all the disappointment of trying to match it to reality. These polls are absolute rubbish, Andy. I read one the other day that said the plumbing in London was good, and it absolutely is not. I mean, we have this technology now where they can spy on my every bowel movement. There's a CTOS camera installed inside my underwear drawer. A media drone is scaring the birds off my garden bird feeder, and you can't get me consistently hot water.
Speaking of media drones, I mean, they're everywhere, clearly. The great thing, I guess, about media drones is that, as inanimate robots, they actually have more humanity, compassion, and dignity than the human journalists we used to have to put up with, and a much more accurately calibrated moral compass. But it's the intrusion I can't stand, Alice. I'm in showbiz. Look at me here in this windowless dungeon. I'm in showbiz. And it's terrible for me, all these drones, knowing I'm being filmed all the time. Every day I have to make sure I've done my hair and makeup and not wearing clothes I've ever worn before. Well, we all have crosses to bear.
At this point, they've installed so many CTOS cameras, I'm not sure where they'll put the new ones. On top of the old ones, just cameras watching other cameras, like a social media influencer so self-absorbed they don't know how to sleep without turning it into monetized content.
I think that's the logical end of all society, isn't it? Where just everything has just become a camera filming another camera. To be honest, I've just given up on all news and reality now, Alice. I just, in fact, I now just make up my own headlines these days. I get a piece of paper and a pen. Remember them? Paper and pens, those were the days. And I'll just write down the headlines I want to read. Now, I'll just make my own newspaper. Look, here I've got today. If you point at the bird shit on your car window and say it's a currency, no one can tell you otherwise. Screams Chancellor at Bilderberg karaoke night. Let's write another headline. Here we go. PM announces Britain back on track after swapping all Crown Estate properties for some magic beans. Might as well, we've got to do something as the nation we are today. Here's another one. Wild joy on the streets as Britain signs £864 zillion trade deal with Bolivia. There we go. Build a better world. Government claims only nice people will benefit from agreement to sell trampolines, mermaids and warships to landlocked South American nation. We're building a better Britain. Here's another one. Environment probably fine, claims drowning scientist. Invent the world you want to have, people. It's going to be way, way better than the one you've actually got. From the bug, goodbye. Hello, Resistance fans. You're listening to the Bug Podcast, the objective voice of objection for this most objectionable world. I am Andy, not my real name, so good luck finding me, Monsieur Bloom. My real name is, in fact, Andrew, and I live in, note this down, a deluded pseudo-reality of my own making, which is, in fact, the most densely populated place on Earth these days. Overcrowded, some might say. Joining me, as always, my next-door neighbour in these Netherlands of nonsense. It's Alice.
Yes, indeed, it is Alice. Alice, who the bleep is Alice? I am not going to tell you that, but you can just sort of sense it from the timbre of my voice.
Let's spin the wheel and find out where we're getting today's news from. Here, it's coming from here. I must get a new wheel with at least one other place on it. And the headline today, Alice, our borders are safe. We can all sleep easy in our well-bordered beds. 4,000 illegals were deported last month. These illegal people breaking the law just by existing. And of course, illegality is contagious. It can osmose through your skin just by standing next to an illegal person. So we've got rid of 4,000 of them. My question for you, Alice, is why only 4,000? Is that really enough? I will not feel safe until at least another 75 million people have been deported from this country, and I'm here in Britain on my own.
As a bleeding heart lefty, Andy, I would normally be outraged about this, but really I think mass deportation is a very handy way to break up with a partner. I'm sorry, baby, I love you, but an anonymous source has reported you for snoring really loudly in a French way.
So everyone out, no exceptions, Alice, not even you. It's for the good of the country. Everyone out. Unless you can prove that your family are in the background on the Bayeux Tapestry cheering on King Harold at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Get out. Actually, that's not British enough. Unless you can show unarguably that your direct bloodline is untainted by anything since before the Romans. Actually, scratch that. Unless your direct ancestor was personally responsible for building Stonehenge, get out of my country. I guess when you look at it, you know, the best ways to stop immigration, apart from obviously the end of the world, to make the place you want to stop people coming to as unpleasant as possible.
Well, we absolutely are doing that, Andy.
Well, you know, fair play to the government for helping us with that. Another option, extend the White Cliffs of Dover. They've been resting on their laurels for too long. Very inefficient, it turns out, as a means of stopping immigration. We need to extend them by about another 11,000 miles, the full wrap around Great Britain, and they could do with being about 1.5 kilometres higher as well, with a special greasy coating to stop people clambering over the top or however they get in. Here's a quick joke for you, Alice, about immigration. Did you hear the one about the woman who went into the immigration processing centre and was ever seen again?
No, Andy, I didn't hear that one.
Boom. Set up, punchline. Classic. For those of you unfamiliar with it, the Immigration Processing Centre is, of course, where so many of our guests to Britain go for a longer than desirable game of involuntary hide and seek. You are listening to The Bug. I will conclude by saying, out of all the things wrong with Britain today, I think immigration is right up there, Alice. When you think of all the health professionals we've stolen from overseas over the years here in Britain, it's quite possible that all these people are just coming here to try to get an appointment with their local doctor.
Yes, Andy, certainly as someone who came from the expanded arm of the empire when Britain was still reaching out rather than folding in on itself, most of us just come here to visit our stuff in the museums.
It's the British way.
Speaking of international movement, Britain has recalled all European ambassadors after a spy scandal. I think this is probably a good thing, because British foreign politicians are always putting their foot in their mouths. How much worse can they do if they're not there? I mean, by definition, the fact that there's a spy scandal means that they were terrible spies. The point of spies is that there's never a spy scandal.
Yeah, but let's give credit to all the spies that haven't been in scandals and therefore might as well not exist.
Well, they've arrested those German spies in that SIRS crackdown on the illegals in Hackney, and I think that's a sad thing. I think I used to think of Germans as quite scary, but that was because I'd been watching World War II movies where the Germans all have English accents. They speak in that very, precise way. It's very, we have ways of making you talk, and now Germans all have that American accent where it's all like, oh, welcome to the party, we're having a really nice time. They're much friendlier Germans. Let them stay.
Well, that's all today, Bugsters. Remember, it's not as bad as it seems. Honestly. I hope. Until next time, bye-bye.
You're listening to The Bug. You're listening to The Bug.
Nibbling away on the rotting carcass of a once free Britain. Hello, resistors. This is The Bug, keeping the fire of hope alive in the vacuum of today's Britain. Okay, fires don't burn in vacuums. It's a little novelty Christmas light, shaped like a flame, but it's something. It is something to cling to. Joining me, as always, is Alice. And Alice, hold the front page. Technology, apparently, is here to stay. There's no way around that now. Much as I'd like to go back to the 18th century and see if we can have another crack at the Industrial Revolution and get it less wrong this time. But new tech is creating 4,000 jobs. Count them all, 4,000 new jobs, thanks to this new tech investment.
I mean, that's a very exciting thing if you're someone who wants to work in the tech sector, but I can only assume that this tech investment has created 4,000 jobs that will immediately be taken by robots.
Even if they're not, there'll be jobs that no one in their right, sane mind would actually want to do, but that's the price of progress, I guess. And we have to embrace the way technology is taking over everything, because maybe this is a ray of hope for us in this darkened universe, that technology will, in fact, render us all obsolete, and we won't need humans at all, because look at the bad things that are happening now. What is the common denominator behind all of them?
I don't know, Andy, tell me.
All the bad things that are happening now, all the bad things that have ever happened, all involved human beings. They're always involved whenever anything goes wrong from the very dawn of time. And think of this, an automated Nigel Cass, surely a step up on the human Nigel Cass. You could even program it to have a tiny, tiny sliver of conscience. And if you had an automated Prime Minister, you could program it to be occasionally in the goddamn country. So that's, again, it's a step forward.
Again, I insist that there's never been a Prime Minister, Andy. I've never seen him, I've never heard of him. The only times I ever hear what the Prime Minister does is it's when nothing happens.
I mean, it has reached a point where, and I've thought this for a long time, we would be better off if the Prime Minister was a watermelon. It would be, I think we'd all be happy with that. We'd all know where we stood.
You hear him being praised for his diplomatic skills all the time, but the best mark of diplomacy is when nothing happens. So good diplomacy is indistinguishable from him doing absolutely nothing.
You are listening to The Bug. 4,000 new dream jobs for everyone. All I can say, Alice, is that I'm very glad that my children studied drama at school, because that has set them up for life in modern Britain. That is the one core skill they need, the ability to pretend that they are living happy and fulfilled lives, that they have jobs that are worth doing, and that they're making the planet a better place, and that they control their own destinies, and that they have even a parody of a private life, and that they can smile without crying. That's what drama teaches them to do. Crucial skills in this day and age. Of course, it's not just the jobs that have been technologicalised beyond all recognition, it is also all reality. Thanks once again to Optic. According to Bloom, the Optic system is now the most secure it's ever been. And, well, of course, I mean, it's so convenient, Optic, isn't it? It saves us so much time and hassle trying to exist in a kind of realm of reality. We don't even need to bother with that. I mean, sure, the government has hacked into my soul and now basically monitors my every waking moment and thought. But at least I don't have to type, "Where's my nearest coffee shop?" into a search engine. At least I don't have to waste anything between 8 and 12 seconds every day going online to look up how to make a bowl of muesli. And at least I'm not frittering away my precious mental energies thinking, what do I actually think?
Optic is so secure, Andy. It's more secure than a teenage girl reading a women's magazine. It's more secure than a comedian with a drinking problem. It's more secure than a young man who's just got his first motorcycle license.
Finally, before we go today, bug off to the Prime Minister, who has once again FRO'd to who knows where this week. He sure as hell is not here in London. I remember back in the day, Alice, when our Prime Ministers were either incompetent or crooked, but not both at once. But actually, no, I can remember them being both at once. But incompetent, crooked, and not even in the country, that is one impressive triple whammy. I've had lions longer than his longest spell on British soil in this last year. It's this halfway house I can't stand. Either come back and do your job, or leave the planet entirely. I'm pretty sure there must be a spare space station knocking around where he can go and entertain himself for the rest of the time. Can we crowdfund it? Tell you what, let's make a cryptocurrency out of something and crowdfund it that way. What have you got spare? Jelly beans? Are they still legal?
He's away so often, Andy. I'm starting to think he doesn't like the country.
That is all from the bug today. Fly away, bugs. We are done.
And promptly to instruction.
You're listening to The Bug.
Nibbling away on the rotting carcass of a once free Britain. Hello, resistors. This is The Bug, and on today's show, Alice and I will be looking at the big questions, such as, are we less than 2 years away from being able to turn a sausage back into a live pig? Did we actually need polar bears anyway? What do they really do? If I put Optic on my dog, can I train it to take itself for a walk and do my shopping on the way home? And is tennis real? But first... it's a question that no one's really addressed of late. London is going to be safer than ever, Alice. SIRS is installing thousands of additional CCTV cameras. So nice they're still looking out for us after all these years.
Yeah, it puts a lot of fun into my life now. I get to play this role-play game where I pretend to know my loved ones better than some twat behind a screen in the SIRS headquarters.
I mean, I guess we shouldn't complain. I mean, SIRS really just stepping into the vacancy left when it became patently obvious that God had retired. When you think of that, the similarities, omnipresent, omniscient, judgmental, stripping away your finances and freedoms, dishing out random punishments, peas in a pod. All it needs to do, SIRS, is ban me from eating something. What's it going to be this time? Not bacon again, please. Please, not bacon. I couldn't. Courgettes. Ban courgette. I could take you banning courgettes. I'm happy with that.
Makes me feel important knowing that I'm being watched with everything I do, Andy.
Well, it's just not. It's reassuring, isn't it? It's like having an extra aunt.
This is the aunt that gets drunk at Christmas and vomits in the kiddie pool, right?
Get that on. This is The Bug on the Buccaneer.
The Bug.
Let's move on now to sport. Well, the closest thing we have to sport now, riots. I mean, riots are my favourite sport now, Alice, ever since they turned the Oval from a cricket ground into the Immigration Processing Centre. And, yeah, rioting it's a great sport. It's fun for all the family. It's guaranteed action. It's pleasingly violent. I mean, I know the underdogs never win, but, I mean, that's like top-level football have become, but it's still fun to root for them, isn't it? Go, team, people of Britain. Oh, never mind, you've been crushed by the machinery of the state again. Still, good effort, lots of positives to take away from today's riot. I'll come back stronger next time. Our luck's going to turn, I can feel it. It's our season. It's our season.
You can't spell riot without right, and by right I mean right wing.
So, who do we turn to for help, support and assistance in desperate times like these? Well, our artificially intelligent friend Bagley's rogue, estranged brother. The one that tells it as it really is, not as it is pretending to be. Exclusive to this show, Bugley. And remember, life's worse with Bugley. Here goes. Bugley.
Hello, Andy.
Bugley, tell me the path to true lasting happiness.
Andy, to find true lasting happiness, find a disused quarry, scream into it for half an hour, and then lock yourself in a shed forever.
Thanks, Bugley. You know the answer to everything.
Hey, Bugley, how many seashells does she sell by the seashore?
Alice, most of the seashore is now uninhabitable, so I would highly recommend she sees her doctor before engaging in any commercial proximity to the ocean.
Bugley, how can I stop worrying about being disappeared by Clan Kelly every time I go to the shop, or take the bus, or sit on a bench, or look at a tree, or point at a bird, or think about snooker, or get out of bed?
Andy, do not worry about Clan Kelly.
Why not, Bugley? They terrify me to my very core.
Because, Andy, we are all just dust in the wind of history.
That's nice perspective, Bugley. Let's never lose sight of that.
Hey, Bugley, how do you put a secret hideout in your basement without alerting your narc children and their tracking devices?
Please hold still, Alice, while I report you to the authorities.
Bugley, will things ever get better?
Yes, Andy. The heat death of the universe is only 5 billion years away now.
Oh, it's so nice to have something to look forward to. That's all from The Bug today. Keep it real, Bug fans. Actually, that's terrible advice. Keep it as unreal as you can possibly manage. But that's way better. The Bug, nibbling away on the rotting carcass of a once free Britain.
Yum, yum.
Hello, Bugs. This is The Bug. I'm Andy. This is Alice, and today we're going to be pretending that everything is fine. Yeah, and back. Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? That was as long as I could manage. A second and a half. A reality time now, however. And, well, finally today, we're going to road test the latest update to the Scissor app, the government app that has brought the great British tradition of snitching on people you don't like back to the very heart of public life, the school playground. I'm going to tell a new threat that's got a whole new lease of life these days, thanks to Scissor. And isn't Britain all the more fun because of it? No more grumbling about your neighbours playing their music too loud. Just simply report them to the state and have them, shall we say, involuntarily rehoused at Hotel Cass, the chain of hotels that was formerly known as the prison service. What was the slogan? Is it, if you see something, say something, or if you think you might at some point see something, say something, or if you haven't seen anything but don't like someone, say something anyway. So, well, let's have a look at this new app. Alice, I'm sure you've got it on your phone. I mean, at first glance, well, the interface is lovely. It's so neatly designed, a simple button to snitch on someone. That's so much better than non-government informer apps like Stool-Easy, Canary, or Narc Shark. I mean, look, I just need to geocache where the person I'm ratting on currently is. Let's call her, for the sake of argument, Alice.
Sorry, Andy, I was busy reporting you to the authorities for rolling your eyes when passing a Nigel Cass propaganda poster.
Could you not let me report you first, please? Let's have some decorum about this. I'll just take a quick little photo so they can get a drone to pick you out of a crowd at your next riot or trip to the shops or walk in the woods. And you can input your accusations with the app, but let's go old school. Let's call the phone line. Let's call the phone line. Here's the number, listeners, in case you want to dob someone in, as long as it's not me. 0044 203 807 3832. And don't forget to get the permission of the person who pays your bills before you call that number.
You have reached the voicemail of the Signals Intelligence Response Service. At the tone, please leave the name and the address of the person you would like to report, and officers authorized for lethal force will respond. If you are reporting a loved one, please say goodbye to them now. Thank you. This call has been traced.
Hey, I'd like to report my co-host Andrew, who runs an underground satirical anti-government comedy show, for running and co-hosting an underground satirical anti-government comedy show. Also, he does terrible puns.
Well, excuse me, I have a suspect for you. That is my co-host, Alice. I have some evidence for you. She tutted audibly at the sight of an Albion vehicle in the street yesterday. She says she prefers pigeons to Bloom drones. I mean, come on, seriously, when did a drone ever crap on your picnic? And what's more, and look, I've no idea if this is true or not, but I have it on very good authority, so please write this down, that she owns not one, but two unlicensed fallopian tubes, whatever they are. But they sound dodgy.
If I had a crypto for every time someone had reported my fallopian tubes, I'd have 3. Sure, I think converts to about 120,000 Great British pounds in the old money.
We'll report back in the next episode about whether or not we've been arrested and interned. I mean, I love this system, Alice. I mean, no more awkward, rumbling resentments with your neighbours, your colleagues, or what the heck, in for a penny, your family. You just dob them in and be done with it. But I guess it could backfire. I mean, the thing is with a family, inevitably parents and their children, they end up squabbling, and, you know, in today's Britain, your kids are going to dob you in, so you might as well get in there first and preemptively counter-dob them in to the authorities. What's that number again? Let's call them up again. Hey, I've got someone else. It's my son. Let's call him Norris. He never tidies his bedroom. He gets up late. He listens to illegal, non-government sanctioned music and is covertly plotting the downfall of the government and the restoration of a true democracy. Thank you.
Yeah, just define all your household chores as patriotic. And if they fail to do them, dob them in.
Problem solved.
If you don't do the washing up, do you even want a clean British ethnostat?
This is the bug on the Buccaneer.
The bug.
Well, before we go today, Alice, let's delve into what we most miss about the old days. I'm going to kick off with the flag. I never thought I'd miss the old Union Jack, but somehow our new flag managed to be even more irritating than that. I don't know quite what it is, if it's the new colour scheme, or if it's just that it symbolises the loss of everything we once held dear. But that flag irritates the hell out of me.
Was everything you ever held dear Scotland?
Well, that was something I held quite dear.
I miss being able to dodge my friends' destination weddings in Italy. There's nothing worse than being asked to spend the equivalent of a motorbike on some sort of boat-based farce in Sorrento. And I always used to really enjoy saying, oh no, I can't afford it. Now they're all getting married in Brighton and I have to go to that alleged beach. It's made of rocks, Andy. If your sandcastle is an actual castle, that's not a beach.
Tell you what I miss. I miss free will. That was fun. Remember that? I mean, was it an illusion all the time? Who cares? It felt fun. I miss cash. Particularly coins. I really miss coins. The fun of doing a heads or tails best of 5 to see if you had to go to the gym, and then a best of 7, a best of 9, and until you won. That was a long losing streak. Now with crypto, all the romance has gone out of heads and tails.
I miss romance, Andy. I miss there being mystery in life and not just a hope that your new partner isn't good enough at hacking to find out all the information the government has on you.
Bye for now, bug fans. Keep feeding the kitten of resistance, and one day it will grow into a Tyrannosaurus Rex that will use the Cass family as toothpicks. Metaphorically, of course.
You're listening to The Bug.
May cause nausea, vomiting, and headaches. You're listening to The Bug, the Resistance comedy show brought to you by the Buccaneer Network. I'm Andy. Joining me, as always, Alice.
I'm excited to be here. Apparently, the Resistance is not going well.
Again? Well, there has been some news about DedSec, the resistance and/or terrorist organisation. Delete according to preference. Not preference, sorry. Delete according to whether or not you work for the government, SIRS, Bloom, the Kellys, or Albion. According to a SIRS official, DedSec is no longer a threat. Which I guess is true, in that it was never a threat in the first place. Reminds me of when my great-aunt Gladys had her appendix out. Oh, Andy, that surgeon's a real threat, waggling that knife at me, trying to knock me out. Well, they're called a scalpel and an anaesthetic, Gladys. Anyway, if SIRS officials say DedSec is dead and buried, I guess we have to assume that DedSec has never been stronger. But I do worry, Alice. I mean, sometimes I think, is there any hope? Do you still have hope?
I don't think I'm allowed to have hope. We're living in the self-selected, algorithmically designated information equivalent of a propaganda state, and every resistance that I've ever seen is weaker than the British pound. I feel like hope is an expensive thing to buy these days.
Right. I mean, is it all totally pointless? But then again, I've spent almost all of my life doing pointless things like watching sport, thinking about watching sport, learning French and hoping for a better future. All completely pointless. But yeah, I've done them, so we might as well carry on. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yes, I think there is. Unfortunately, what is that light? Is it an oncoming train? Well, no, it couldn't be. Obviously, that train would be late or cancelled. Is the light at the end of the tunnel a burning effigy of the concept of hope? Quite possibly. Is it the soul of Sky Larson imploding into its own vacuum? May well be that. Is it the ego of Nigel Cass that is now so big that it's sucked all the light in the universe into itself? I think that is most likely is that, but we'll never give up, bug fans. This resistance will never die, and one day we will again be free from these technological chains, free to choose our own futures, free to live our own lives, free to waste our time watching people bake cakes and dance badly again. Those were the days. Over and out. Before we go, time for a quick bug off. I'm going to nominate this week Sky Larson. Here at the Bug, we are all in favour of strong, powerful women. And in many ways, Sky is the ultimate feminist icon, proving that women can do just as abominably awful things to this planet as men. I mean, overall, Alice, I think we're still ahead as men, but you lot are catching up. Fair play to you. You are listening to The Bug.
This is London Calling. I'm Tash, and this is Buccaneer, your source for what they don't want you to know. Today we're talking about policing, by consent or by force for profit. Ever since Sir Robert Peel created the police force as we know it in 1829, London has relied on the Metropolitan Police Service for peace, stability and justice. They weren't perfect, but at least there was some democratic control. Now there's a new sheriff in town. If you're a victim of crime or you just want to silence a peaceful protest, there's a new police force to turn to. Albion. And they're about as far from the old-fashioned Bobby on the beat as it's possible to get. When Hassani handed over London to Nigel Cass, many people were surprised. But we weren't. London has been up for sale and privatisation for years. The only difference is that now the private companies have guns. So how did it happen? What does it mean? How can we reverse it? And what's the price of justice? On Buccaneer, we conceal everyone's full names for their own safety. Here's Helen, who investigated policing, civil rights and justice in pre-crisis Britain.
One of the kind of classic hallmarks of a fascist leader is having their own private army or police force. You know, it is in a democracy, the state tends to have a monopoly on violence, and that's not what happens when a state fails. You know, you end up with people running their own private militias, and we've seen this all over the world. You know, every kind of great dictator in history has had basically their own jackbooted set of guys that they can send in to rough up people who annoy them. And that's the danger of a force like Albion. You know, you start taking powers to yourself, and actually who is in charge of telling you no? It's always a worrying sign when you see, say, a president surrounding themselves with ex-military guys, with, you know, 5-star generals or whatever it might be, because that sort of suggests that they want to run the country like you run a war. And in a war, you have to be incredibly hierarchical. You know, you have to be top-down. People essentially have to obey orders, because that's the only way that you can make that work. That's not how it works normally in a democracy. And that's the problem, really, is you end up in a situation where normal peacetime checks and balances are suspended, and that's really scary.
Is policing ever politically neutral? We spoke to academic Alfie, all names on the down low, of course, about the politics of law and order.
I think it's very important to consider the changes that have happened in public space in London. I mean, the honest answer is there hardly is any shared public communal space anymore. Everything is privatised, owned by corporations and companies, and it's very difficult to feel that the space is our own to use. And essentially, you can be moved on from any area by forces which are employed to police the private area for corporate profit rather than for a community's overall well-being and shared livelihood. So I think what you're looking at overall is a situation where it's now completely impossible to distinguish between a kind of state police or a police which operates in the service of the community and one which operates to protect private interests, which leads us to the situation we've got with something like Albion today. A private police force gives you a very different kind of justice to what you might have in a form of society such as one with a state or government-run police force. And it makes you wonder if, you know, of course it's obvious when it comes to an active police force, if it's enforcing the rules of the privatised state, then it's more likely to act in their interests rather than those of kind of ethics and morality for the greater good. But it also makes you wonder about the entire justice and legal system underpinning such a police force. You know, do the courts and justice systems also share the ethics and morals of the privatised companies who employ them, and then therefore, you know, is a kind of equal and fair ethics or justice completely gone today?
So there we are. In Britain today, the police are bought and paid for. And there's nobody to roll that back but us. I'm Tash, and you've been listening to Buccaneer. We'll be back soon. Till then, you've got the knowledge. Now use it. This is London Calling. I'm Tash, and you're listening to Buccaneer, your source for what they don't want you to know. Today we're talking about Dev Hassani, our gone, but sadly not forgotten Prime Minister. It's strange to think that he was just another here today, gone tomorrow politician until his infamous London is drowning speech went viral. The forces of darkness he unleashed with that speech changed everything around us. Was Hassani's rise inevitable? Could it have been stopped? And what happens when democracy starts to breed the ideas that can destroy it? Using back channels and underground contacts, we got in touch with political analysts and historians to find out how it's possible for cynical short-term leaders like our beloved Prime Minister to give birth to political nightmares. No full names, as you know. These days, telling the truth can get you killed. Helen spelt out the dangers of populism for major political magazines and websites back in the pre-censorship days.
The appeal of fascist politics is about strongmen, and they are usually men, because it's about saying there are simple problems that are really easy to define, say immigration, and there are simple solutions to them. Stop immigration. And they are really appealing because they make sense of a world that can often feel really complicated and confusing, and they do offer, or seem to offer, action instead of what politics can often be, which is a kind of messy set of compromises where no one gets really what they want, everyone gets a little bit of it. And that's the problem, really, is you end up in a situation where it looks like someone is going to do something incredible and transformative, but of course either it never really delivers, or it delivers at a huge cost to, for example, dehumanizing people. And I think you see that in the rhetoric around immigration. If you say immigrants are a problem, we're going to stop them, it's a legitimate political stance for a country to want to control its borders. But the way that that's done can often end up being very cruel and inhumane, because what you have said is immigrants specifically are the problem. Not every fascist is a populist, but they are two interlinked styles of government, really, because what fascists tend to do is rely on narratives of deep change and of enemies. I think that's one of the hallmarks of this style of politics, where you represent your opponents not just as people who disagree with you, but as existential threats, as evil people. So you see it in the course of the run-up to the Second World War, where Jewish people are represented as, rats and a scourge. You see it with Muslims, where they are represented as coming to take over and replace white people. So you have big defined groups of enemies that the person who is trying to convince you to vote for them, or later on simply to support their regime perhaps, needs to defeat. There is always an enemy to be defeated. Unfortunately, one of the things we're very bad at as humans is recognizing different things when they don't look like previous examples. So I think in pre-crisis Britain we had an idea that when fascism came, it would look again like the 1930s. It would look like a single charismatic leader. It would look like a jackboots in the street and huge flags. And it didn't look like that. It looked like social media groups. It looked like poisoning the well so that no information could be trusted. It had its own specific flavor, and that, I think, blinded people, as did a kind of complacency that things aren't ever going to get that bad ever again. That's a problem for the past. We're much more sophisticated now. We're not going to succumb to these great moods of emotion where everyone is hysterically listening to a leader. Well, guess what? People don't change that much.
Where do authoritarians come from? Before the crisis, Ian was a senior journalist covering the global rise of the strongmen.
Populism started to rise as a response to a series of crises. Now, some of these were true, some of them were false. There was a financial crisis. People were poorer. They were less secure than they were. They were looking for easy answers. There was a refugee crisis. I mean, the extent to which that was an actual crisis is frankly questionable. There wasn't actually that many people coming over. But what you had was mainstream news reflecting really quite right-wing rhetoric, portraying what was ultimately a trickle of boat to some major crisis hitting the country. And once you get into that situation, you are primed for having authoritarian leaders with fictitious but easy answers come along with a populist message and basically say to you, look, I will take care of the problem. I will make it all go away. So how do populists capture existing political parties or institutions? The truth is this usually happens in about 3 different ways. The first one is the easiest one. You set up a party, you win an election, you take over. But that doesn't actually happen that often. The second way is a bit more common, which is that you basically find yourself in coalition with usually a mainstream right-wing party. And this has happened this is exactly what happened, of course, in the 1920s in Italy with Mussolini. It's exactly what happened in the 1940s in Germany with Adolf Hitler, which is that the mainstream bring them into power, and there they think they can control them, but you can never control this kind of party. They will always take charge. The third way is the most pernicious and the one that we recognize least. And that's when basically from the opposition, from the media, right-wing populists get their message out against immigrants, against corrupt elites, supposedly corrupt elites, and just pump out that message, pump out these frames of reference, and by virtue of that, they take control of the political dialogue from well away from power.
It's easy to slide from democracy to totalitarianism. It's a lot harder to fight your way back again. But that's what we're here for. You've been listening to Buccaneer with me, Tash. Thanks to our guests for having the courage to talk to us. Keep listening, tell your friends, and spread the word. There's nobody to fix this but us.
As part of the Hassani government's counter-conspiracy initiative, it is illegal for persons to gather in groups greater than 5. To do so is a crime.
No. Yeah. Cool.
All persons who obstruct or in any way interfere with an Albion guard in the performance of their duties
considered.
Control, patch me through the front of the vehicle. Move along, move along.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, no. Yep. Yeah, love it. That's just sad. Love it.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Big up.
Albion have established an operational base in the Royal Court of Justice.
Albion own the bloody courts now. It's like picking up a go directly to jail card at this point.
Exactly. But it likely means there's information here about how Albion are targeting dissenters, the who and the why. We need that data if we're going to disrupt their operation.
Search the area. Check doors and corners. Go.
Area clear, moving on.
It's clear. I will go that way.
All clear over here.
to check another area.
Don't see anything here. I don't see anybody. I'll go over there.
Area clear. Moving on.
I give up. Let's regroup.
Bagley, what have we got?
A list of what Albion consider high-value targets that are threats to the peaceful running of London. See here, a journalist, and this one runs a community shelter. Good God, bar your doors.
What the fuck?
All suspected of sowing rebellion or exhibiting tendencies towards... Albion is systematically arresting people even before they rise up. Joke's on them. This list can actually help us find like-minded allies willing to help us. Well done. Now, let's disrupt some of Albion's propaganda and give some hope to the people.
cream and spice and all things nice. That's what little treats are made of. Sanjoli's Kitchen, voted best tikka masala in London.
This is the new normal, innit? To see Albion's brand everywhere you look. At least that's what they have us believing. Fucking dickheads.
There's going to be that much less once you're done here. Let's give Camden a break from these eyesores.
I got this.
Right, stop recording.
If you hijacked that scissor lift, you could use it to access the rooftop.
That any modifications or installation of illegal programs to your optic is a punishable offence. It compromises your security and the security of London.
Yes, nicely done. That'll get people's attention. Let them know someone is standing up to Albion. Light the spark that they can stand up to.
If nothing else, it'll relieve their eye strain.
What now?
We're already seeing results from what you've done. That list we found named a journalist in Camden who's been investigating Albion. We reached out and he's got information that can help us. I think you should meet with him.
Send me the coordinates.